Hello, and welcome back to Session 2. I want to start by thanking you for making the investment in yourselves by attending these Health Master sessions. Working to create awareness about our psychological functions and learning how to create healthier thoughts and emotions bring benefits to every area of our lives. Yet for most people, coming into this awareness, it's not easy. And for some of us, it takes a lot of courage. So kudos to you for stepping up to the plate and working through this process with me. Recently we hit the streets and we asked people some random questions about their psychology. And here's what they said.
Probably not very often, but sometimes if I can get quite emotional about my children.
No, not really. But when I do, sometimes in the morning or at nighttime when I feel stressed and anxious, but I don't really think about it too much.
I can't say that I ever do. I don't know if I've ever looked at it that way.
I don't really think about them a lot, but I have this new partner in my life and she brings that up quite a bit actually, and I guess if I want to make this relationship work, I might have to start thinking about that.
I don't think I really think about that.
Not as often as I should, but I have taken moments to think and be like, oh, what am I thinking about every day?
Well, health is on the forefront of one's mind nowadays, so yeah, think about it many times every day.
Oh, I think they can be changed. I think you may have to work at it, but I think it's something that you can do.
I guess if I want this relationship to work, I'm going to have to believe in it, and I do believe in it.
Yeah, I think you can change that. I think you can. I think with positive thinking and getting out there and surrounding yourself with people who love and care about you, I think that's possible.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Definitely, you can create healthier thoughts and emotions, and that'll make you feel better.
No, I don't believe you're stuck with it. I think change is possible.
Yeah, I hear about this at work all the time through our wellness program, and I do believe in it, but I don't really practice it, no.
You definitely can. Yeah, I find myself, I catch myself being negative, and I know when I stop your being negative, don't think like that, and you can steer your way into a different direction, and so of course you can. Yeah.
No, I think they can be changed, for sure.
Anything can be changed. It's when we get beyond our limited belief system and approach things with an open mind that change can happen.
Let's start by reviewing what we did in our last week's session and what we're going to do in this week's session. Okay, the first thing that we did was talk about our psychological functions, and they're an amazing part of us and make up who we are. They also determine the success we will have in our work, in our relationships, and our overall quality of life. Second thing we talked about was how our psychological functions move back and forth from being in a regulated state to an escalated state. Being escalated often would be considered unpleasant and stressful. Becoming escalated is okay and very normal as long as we don't move into the state too often or stay in it for too long, or find ourselves unable to bring ourselves back to a regulated state. The third thing we talked about is that we now know that our brains are neuroplastic, which means that we can make positive changes to our psychological functions, which begins by creating awareness and learning how to regulate ourselves when we become escalated. And now for this week. We're going to learn how to use regulation tools that will help us move from an escalated state back to a regulated state. We're going to look into the lives of Sue and Bill and John as they begin their journey in working to improve their psychological functions. Often seeing other people and their journey really helps us in our own journey. And third, we're going to shift to the topic of engagement and learn what it means and the critical role it plays towards enhancing our psychological functions. Now, before we get going, I just want to mention how in your last e-learning session, we reviewed the 3 guidelines. So as we move forward, let's work to put our best effort towards practicing each of them, as they will help you get the most out of these sessions. Briefly, they include these. We want you to overcome the stigma of talking about your mental health. Secondly, we're inviting you to practice honesty without oversharing, to ensure that what you share is appropriate. And third, engage others, which means to do your best at creating a connection, which creates an important interpersonal dynamic in the group. And I will talk more about that later in today's session. Then we went over 2 administration functions, which include confidentiality. We all agreed not to share anything that we talked about in this room with anyone else. And we also talked about attending all 7 sessions. Now, let's begin to review and how we can enhance our skills towards learning how to regulate ourselves when escalation occurs. The first step is to stop and gain awareness. It's to become aware when you feel escalation coming on. If possible, we want to learn the early warning signs of escalation and when it begins so that we can catch ourselves early in this stage. We do this by learning how to use one of the tools, which is called checking in. It's simply done by focusing your attention on your psychology, as we did in session 1. So let me demonstrate this again. I usually start by closing my eyes, focusing on my breathing, taking a few deep breaths. And then I begin to focus on my thoughts and my emotions. And as I do this, I'm not really noticing any unpleasant or difficult thoughts right now. As I check into my body, I'm not noticing any heaviness or tension or tightness in my body. So I would say that right now I'm very much in a regulated state. Now, back when I got stuck in traffic a few days ago, I didn't know where I was going. I was not regulated at all. That's a different story. At that time, I was not even aware that I was moving from a regulated state to an escalated state. I was just there. I was just in it. But as soon as I did notice, I knew I had to stop, pull over, fill up with gas, whatever. It takes a time out and de-escalate. I want each one of you to do another check-in with me, for the simple reason that the more we do check-ins, the better we get at using this tool to determine when escalation begins in the early stages. Okay, I want you to start by closing your eyes and taking 4 or 5 deep breaths. Try to pay attention to your thoughts. Are they racing and jumping from thought to thought? Or are your thoughts pleasant and easy? Or maybe heavy and unpleasant? Now I want you to check into your emotions, which can be done by noticing if you have any sensations, heaviness, tension, tightness in your body. And if you do, try to connect the emotions that might be connected to those sensations in your body. Now, rank from a 1 to a 10, with 10 being fully escalated and 1 being fully regulated, where you're at right now. Now I want you to think of a recent time when you might have been escalated. What number was that? The next step I want to review is timeouts. Once we become aware that we're escalated in step 1, we need 100% of our focus and energy will be required to successfully de-escalate. At work, this could mean going somewhere outside, or go sit in your car, or even go in the washroom and sit in the cubicle. If you're in a conversation at home, this could be asking if you could de-escalate for 30 minutes and just take a walk or go in someplace, and then return back to the conversation. You know, in most situations, whether at work or not, it's possible to take time to go through this process. Step 3, I want you to rank your escalated state. Rank from 1 to 10, 10 being fully escalated, 1 being fully regulated. Because learning to give your psychological state a ranking is important in order for you to have some kind of measuring track so that you can find out what your progress is. And step 4, to begin de-escalation using one of the tools. Now, each of these 3 de-escalation tools will work differently for different people. But as I go through them, I want you to try to discern which 1 or 2 would work best for you. Tool number 1. Call someone in your front row and do a check-in with them using the check-in procedures we just did. You know, a front row person is someone who you trust and can be an empathetic listener to you. And we will talk about how to establish people like this in your life from your group or from your personal life in future sessions. But doing a check-in with another person requires that you find words that articulate and express what's going on with your thoughts and emotions. It's about learning how to create a language for what is happening within your psychological functions. And we are going to talk about this more later. The second de-escalation tool is the Abraham deep breathing exercises. In session 1, I did a short version with you using this, but over the years we've tested this tool and it works to significantly reduce you back to a regulated state. And you can access this tool from your smartphone and do it almost anywhere. And the third tool is to go for a 20-minute walk. Some people find going for a walk is a powerful de-escalation activity, and that can be done almost anywhere. The point of going for a brisk walk is that it helps balance brain chemistry and it also carries out deep breathing. As we progress, I want to introduce you to more de-escalation tools, but I want us to focus on these 3 first. Now, I want to show you how I shifted into an escalated state at work on one day and how I use the de-escalation tools to bring myself back to a regulated state. Whew. You know, when it comes to getting the job done in today's hyper-competitive marketplace, it can create a lot of demands on us. I just spent 30 minutes with this group right here, and let me tell you, this business has a lot of challenges ahead of them. The old adage is true. Either we manage change or change manages us, because change will happen. You know, the pace of change at this breakneck speed has a potential to push us from a regulated state to an escalated state. And I came into this meeting feeling strong and regulated, but somewhere in there, I shifted into a really escalated state. So right now, I need to reach into that tool belt we talked about and use some of the tools. So in lesson 1, I talked about how to bring myself back into a regulated state. And I only have 30 minutes until this meeting starts up again. So I'm going to go for a walk in the nearby park. And see, what I would do in the past is I would just stay in that escalated state and I'd keep working and pushing myself to perform. But the problem is that while in that state, my brain functions are just not able to help me to be at my best performance. Usually this escalated state has me in fight or flight mode or freeze mode. So come with me as I work to bring myself back down from this escalated state to a regulated state. All right, before I go through some of my de-escalation exercises to get me out of this escalated state, let's do some review. In session 1, we discussed how to go back and forth from a place of being regulated to escalated, and how this is quite normal. Being life is both hard and it's got some good things about it as well. You see, being escalated is not wrong or bad, but it would be considered unhealthy if we go into this mode and stay here for prolonged periods of time. Then I gave you an analogy about an electrician who always puts his tool belt on and uses these tools to help him succeed at work, and how we need our tool belt each and every day to succeed at maintaining a healthy psychological state. I introduced you to 2 tools in the tool belt, check-ins and laughter. So that's our review of lesson 1. Now let's get back to me in my escalated state. The first thing I can tell you is that laughter is the last thing I feel like doing right now after that meeting. So the tools we are using now are these, timeouts, which is why I'm here and not in that meeting room. The second tool I used was some cardiovascular exercise, just to get out, to get a breath of fresh air, and to get my heart rate going up a bit. The third tool I'm going to use is expressing frustration and pain to an empathetic listener, which is what I'm doing with all of you. So, let me start with my check-in with you and share with what happened in that meeting. In this meeting, the client was really facing some major business challenges, which is pretty normal in today's world of business. So in this meeting, I became escalated. Why? Someone rolled their eyes at me. I'd made a suggestion and they rolled their eyes at me, and that triggered me because it happened to me a lot in my childhood. My brother always did that to me. And so in the moment, it felt familiar and I didn't really catch it for a while, but that was the thing that actually triggered me. Now, I think it's human to get escalated. But I'm also grateful that I get escalated less and less, and I don't stay there for very long. And the more work I do to get better psychological health, I realize that there's great benefits to me in every way. Another thing I'm realizing that as I check in with you is that it took me a while to understand why I went from a regulated place to an escalated place. It even took me a while to understand that I was getting escalated. It just happens automatically. And that's why I asked for a 30-minute break, just to get some clarity as to what's going on. See, in this escalated state, my entire perception was affected. Instead of feeling strong and creative in the meeting, I began to feel weak and I began to believe that I had nothing to offer. And the part of my brain that produces creativity and strong relational skills required in this team meeting were not functioning at all. For the simple reason that I was in an escalated state. I was in a fight or flight or even a freeze mode. My brain was functioning in a different area, which created a very negative view as to how I perceived this meeting and how I perceived myself. In fact, during this meeting, I was getting oversensitive with some of the things being said and done, and I was taking them way too personally. In fact, the time came up in the conversation where I needed to set a boundary for one of the people, but I didn't because I was feeling weak and intimidated, and my overall performance toward the last part of the meeting was not at all where I wanted to be. So, right now as I continue my check-in, I actually feel anger in my forehead. I've got some anxiety in my chest. And if I would have had to rank my escalated state, I would give it a 5 out of 10. But that's now. In the meeting, I think I would have given it more of a 8 out of 10. And it feels way better to be at a 5 instead of an 8. And what's helping me move towards a more regulated state was the fact that I took a time out. I just said, I need 30 minutes. I didn't explain why, so I just need 30 minutes. And I did some cardio exercise. And now I'm articulating to you guys what happened. And I know and I appreciate the fact that you're listening empathetically. And as I continue to talk to you guys and checking in with myself at the same time, I would say I'm going down to a 3 or 4. I realized what was going on, I realized why I feel what I feel, and I realized that my perspective was off. And with the 3 or 4, I can say that my perception of this meeting is very different. I have a new perspective and I feel myself being more confident and grounded. In other words, I'm moving from the rear part of my brain back to the front left cortex. You see, when this meeting started, there was lots of fear and concern in the room as to the big decision that had to be made. And that somehow affected me, and some of the things that people did affected me, and it shifted me, and it shifted my perspective. Well, I feel much less escalated, and I'm in a way better regulated state. Thanks for taking the time to listen to me. And it's time to get back to that meeting and do a great job. So that really worked. Came back to a very much a regulated state. But when I started all this, I wasn't very good at it at all. It felt quite clumsy. When I was dating my wife, it was our first date and we were going to a symphony and I was dressed in my suit and we were living in a province called Saskatchewan, which is in the middle of Canada, in the middle of winter, and I'm driving and I'm fully escalated. She's gorgeous. I'm going to ruin this somehow. She's going to dump me. And I'm nervous. I'm panicked. I'm almost going into a bit of a panic attack. And we're driving 1 hour for our symphony. And I get to this point and I'm just like, I'm just freaking out inside. And it's flat, it's prairie, but there's a few hills because you have to go over train tracks. And on one of these, I pulled over, I got out of my car, and in my suit, I rolled down the hill in the snow. And I'm at the bottom of the hill going, what am I doing? But I had to get out of the scenario and I had to do something, just anything. And I got back in the car and I looked over at her and she's like, what was that? And I'm like, I just wanted to roll down the hill, and later on she says, I just thought you were weird. And I'm like, I had to get out of that zone. So that's my first attempt at de-escalation. It got better from there. I think it only could get better from there. But as you start, you may feel clumsy like that. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just go for a walk. I just gotta get out of here. But as you practice this, you will get really good at de-escalating yourself. All right, now let's look at our 3 people. I want to introduce you to Bill, Sue, and John, who you met in session 1. and they've agreed to share their experiences that they're having as they move through the Health Master sessions at the same pace as your group.
Hi, can I speak to Kim?
Speaking.
Hi, Kim. I'm a participant in one of the Health Master groups, and in the last session, you suggested that when we first learn how to regulate, some of us will need support, so I'm calling you because I'm feeling kind of stressed right now, and I just can't seem to get out of it.
Well, Bill, thanks for calling. You're doing the exact right thing. So what's up? What's going on?
Well, when you explained being escalated, I had a hard time understanding the concept, but as we moved into session 2, I began to notice the difference from when I'm regulated to when I shift into a stressful escalated state. In fact, I'm stressed or escalated, whatever you call it, right now.
Well, that's really good progress, Bill, and noticing that you're actually getting to that place. I'd love to move to the next step to help you come back to a regulated state if you're up for it.
Yeah, I would like that.
Okay, so let's start by doing a check-in right now, and I want you to tell me where you're at between 1 and 10. 10 being a really escalated state and 1 being a really regulated state.
Well, I would have to give myself a 7 or 8. Oh, I don't know, it's really hard to gauge it.
Okay, so what caused you to get into that state?
Well, it's work. I mean, I just seem to not be getting on with some new people in our office, and I also have a new boss who I can't relate to, and I just don't know where I am at with him, that's all.
Yeah, that sounds really frustrating for you, Bill.
Oh boy, it sure is, and it's been going on for quite some time now.
So, why don't you tell me what happened?
Bill explained to Kim the relationship fracture that was occurring with a new person in the office. Kim then asked Bill to see if he could take an early lunch and go for a 30-minute walk, which he did. When Bill finished the walk, Kim asked him to go onto his confidential journal on his Health Master's dashboard and journal everything that led him to an escalated state with a focus on finding words to articulate his thoughts and emotions. Then when he was done, to email it to Kim and to talk again briefly that afternoon. After they talked, Bill's escalated state went down from a 7 to a 4.5. Kim and Bill agreed to talk again the next week to see how he was trying to use the de-escalation tools on his own. It was Bill's first experience learning how to change his state from an escalated state to a regulated state.
Hello, it's Kim.
Oh, hi, Kim. It's Sue.
Oh, hi, Sue. Glad you called. How are things going?
Oh, Kim, I can't tell you how stressed I am. We had a weekend plan, and my husband changed everything on me because he had to work on Saturday. I'm just so angry right now that I can't even think of what to say to the kids. They're going to be just really disappointed.
Wow, I can't even imagine how frustrating this might be for you. I'm sorry to hear this.
Well, thank you.
Okay, I'd like you to do a self-check-in. If you had to give yourself a ranking between 1 and 10, being 10 is the most escalated, what number would you give yourself right now?
Oh, a 10.
Wow. Okay, that's about as high as it gets. It's got to be difficult. So what's going on?
Oh, it's this crazy job of my husband's. I just can't believe they're making him work on a Saturday when we have important family plans.
Okay. Are you willing and interested in doing an exercise with me that will help reduce your escalated state?
Well, I guess that's why I'm calling you. You did tell me to the next time I got stuck in an escalated state.
Okay, that's really good, Sue. First, I want to say thanks for being willing to learn about how to reduce your escalated state. You know, people don't often have the courage to even do this and call in, so good on you for doing this. Now, here's the exercise. I want you to go to your smartphone, get your smartphone, and go to the Health Master dashboard and click on the Abraham Deep Breathing exercise.
Okay.
Can you see it there?
Oh, yeah, I've got it.
Okay. Now, it's really important to be alone during this, and it's even best if you can lie down somewhere.
Well, I can go to the couch.
Excellent. All right, I want you to click play once I hang up, and I want you to lay back in the couch and do this 15 to 20 minute exercise, which is a guided exercise where you deep breathe and then answer a few questions that are on the screen. Can you do that?
Yeah, I can do that.
All right. And then once you've completed that, I want you to give me a call right away just to check in.
Sue called Kim 20 minutes later and checked in, and her escalated state went from a 10 down to a 4. After another 8 minutes of talking, it went down to a 3. Additionally, as Sue calmed down and moved toward a regulated state, she came up with the idea of calling her husband to ask if he could get Monday off, which he found out he could. So Sue and her family still were able to take the vacation.
Hey, John.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How's it going for you?
Well, you told me last time that how I should connect with you when I get stuck in an escalated state, and so here I am.
Oh, so you're there, eh?
Yeah. I tried to use the tools, and to be honest, I don't have any energy or motivation to do this on my own. It doesn't even make sense to me, but I do want to learn how to regulate myself. It's just not good being in this headspace. Never mind my performance at work.
Right. Well, hey, thanks for connecting.
Yeah.
You did the right thing, even though it's not an easy thing. So, what would you say your regulated or escalated state is right now? Would you give it a number between 1 and 10? Regulated is 1, escalated goes all the way up to 10.
Oh man, I'd give it a 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd give it a 10.
That's about as high as it gets. Okay. When you got into work this morning, what would you think your regulated, escalated state was at that point?
Well, I came into work feeling good about things. Probably my regulated state was a 2 out of 10, I guess. And then I got an email about one of the people that on my team who resigned.
Just like that?
Yeah. Then we went into a leadership meeting and it didn't go well.
Unraveled from there.
Yeah. So I left the meeting fully escalated.
Wow. So
the entire day has been just this stressful, escalated state. So here I am.
Okay. Well, what I'd love you to do is just kind of walk through what some of your thoughts and emotions might be about today.
Okay. Well, I'm flooded with all kinds of negative thoughts. I guess that's expected, right?
About you, about work.
Well, no, I'm concerned about my department, right? Are we going to make it? So I guess I have fear.
Right.
Another escalated thought is I don't know why the person resigned. I'm thinking, was it because of me? So I'm angry at myself for maybe not being a good enough leader. You know how that goes. And I'm angry at myself, and angry at her for leaving on such short notice.
So no warning, just going.
Well, so it's, like ripping off the bandage. Like, whoa, what? I'm also wondering about the decisions our leadership are making. What are they thinking? I have tons of anger towards them right now. So, and how am I supposed to do my job? I've worked so hard to grow my department, and it seems like everything is against me.
Mm-hmm.
Even the people I work with, cutbacks, people quitting. A lot of uncertainty, right?
So I'm curious as to whether you felt these kinds of things before. Are these new thoughts and feelings, or have you kind of experienced stuff like this before?
Yeah, I did with my last job, for sure. We went from 18 people down to 8 in the last recession. Toughest time of my career.
Ouch.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, in the middle of that chaos, were you able to navigate through that, and did you end up okay?
It was hard, but I got through it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that might be true about this present chaos? Do you think you might be able to navigate your way through this as well?
You know, I guess I will. I mean, I always seem to find a way to get through things. You know, I'm in a position where I have to be the leader, right? So
solve problems.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I'll get through it for sure.
Okay. So let's do another self-check, check-in. You walked in at a 10, maybe 9, whatever. Where do you think you're at right now?
That's funny, yeah. Even just spilling it, I guess, I definitely feel better. I'm still frustrated. But I'd say, you know, down from a 9 to a 5, or you know, maybe even a 4.
Okay. So we're well on our way just by doing. I mean, we haven't come up with any master plans but just getting it out, talking about it, realizing that this is not the first time you've hit chaos, but you did navigate through, and you'll probably navigate through again. Yeah, you're well on your way to becoming regulated, so you can make better decisions.
Yeah, you're right.
I really appreciate you coming in.
Wow.
Well done, John.
Thank you for listening.
Right on. Okay, we've heard from some other people, and now it's your turn to do some self-examination. Go ahead and answer the questions in your workbook. All right, we've heard from some different people, but now it's your turn, and I would love the host to break everyone into small groups of 3. Now in session 1, I stated that we would talk more about engagement, which I would like to do right now. You see, engagement is a key factor in reducing the amount that we get escalated. And it also helps you use the regulation tools more successfully to bring yourself back to a healthy, regulated state. Lack of engagement is also the #1 cause of poor mental health. Engagement is defined as feeling a sense of being connected with one or more persons. When engaged, we feel accepted and empathy. Engagement is also kindness and patience and gentleness, and when they're being expressed within the interpersonal dynamics between 2 people or a group of people. It's intrinsic within each of us to desire to be engaged with other people. And right now, some of us probably have some level of engagement with others, whether it be at a higher or lower level. Due to relationship fractures we experience, some of us find it more difficult to engage with others in fear that we might get hurt. So we are cautious about going to a deep level of engagement. The logic there is that if I stay back and keep engagement low, the chance of getting hurt is low. That's not true. But we're going to talk more about that in future sessions. What I want to do now is an experiential exercise that will help you gain a deeper understanding of this amazing gift that we have called engagement. Host, it's time to hand out their masks. And as soon as everyone has their mask, I want everyone together as a group, put the mask on and turn around away from each other. And then turn back towards the group. And I want you to get up and go to 2 people and ask them what the high point of their week was. And host, you can time this event. And when we finish, please keep your masks on. Well, thanks for doing that exercise. That was a little unique for some of us. But as you keep this mask on, I want you to think about something. What was it like to interact with others with this separation between you? Look around the room. Notice how important eyes and facial expressions are in knowing where a person's at, knowing what's going on within them, and sort of gauge things between you and how you're doing. You know, think of it. When we first come in contact with a person, for most of us, we begin by looking at each other's face and eyes. which would be a small level of engagement. Imagine if you walked up to a cashier in a store and instead of looking at them briefly, making the contact, you would look away from her or him. Or walk into a room with somebody you know and they won't even look at you. What does that feel like? Is there a sense that maybe something's wrong between the two of you? You see, engagement most always begins by looking at a person and making eye contact. Now, I want you to think of a situation when you came in contact with another person and they wouldn't even look at you. What did that feel like? What kind of thoughts came to mind for you? For me, this happened and I wondered if there's something wrong between us. It felt like a sense of void, not knowing if I was being accepted or rejected by them, which is the total opposite of engagement. I call this disengagement. I want you to think and realize how your face and your eyes play a critical role in the way we engage with each other or reject each other. It's such a powerful part of how we communicate. Experts say that our words only make up 20% of what we're saying to others. The rest is in things like body language or tone. Like I can say sorry or sorry. It's the same word, but our tone changes everything. In other words, we're constantly sending multiple messages to each other through our face and our eyes and our body language and our tone of voice. But the first unspoken message we give off when we come into contact with each other is either I want to engage with you or I don't want to engage with you. Now, many of us may not be conscious of this, but this is actually what's going on. Now, as we prepare to take off our masks, I want you to get up again and go to two different people and ask them the same question. What was the high point of their week? So host, go ahead, begin this activity, and when everyone's done, you can have them seated. Now, as you did this exercise and are now sitting here looking at each other, I want you to actually pay attention. What's the difference without the masks? In doing this exercise many times and hearing people's response, I assume most of us would prefer not to wear the mask. Sometimes it's fun, but if you really want to engage with somebody, you need to take the mask off. It gives us the opportunity to engage at some level with each other. Now, let me share some of my observations. There is an intrinsic desire that exists within each of us to engage. But yet, as much as this desire is intrinsic, the concepts of learning how to engage deeper can be scary for some of us. So, with our masks off, if there was such a thing as an engagement meter, it would definitely indicate that there's a higher level of engagement among us right now. So, please imagine with me, what would it be like if we, as a group, were able to increase the level of engagement in both of the 5 remaining sessions that we have and the e-learning assignments? Being as I've seen this work powerfully, I am confident it would change the entire interpersonal dynamics of our group in a very positive way. You know, most of us can think of a time when we were highly engaged. For me, the most engagement time was a time recently with my son when he was suffering from an illness, and I held his hands and we affirmed each other. Another time was when my oldest son recently told me that he found the love of his life, and it was reported to me as one of his great accomplishments, and we cried together in joy for this discovery. Another time of significant engagement is physical intimacy with my wife. These are engagement times, and this is what makes us feel alive. Now, close your eyes right now, and I want you to take 3 or 4 deep breaths. And I want you to think of a recent instance when you felt really engaged with a person. What were your emotions? What were the thoughts that came up for you during that time? How good did it make you feel? Okay, just a few seconds. We're going to bring your attention back to the room. Now, I want you to go to your workbook and read what I've written and answer the following questions. Now it's time for us to share with each other I would like to close this exercise by talking about the intrinsic link between getting escalated and feeling disengaged. Each of us have such an intrinsic need to be engaged, being that it helps us stay regulated and avoid escalation. Now, I also realize that this can't just happen with anybody, but we all need a few people in our life who we can do this with. In the case of some of you who don't have anyone that you can practice this with, you can make a contact with a Health Master coach who will help you develop this in your life. Additionally, you may find some people in this group who you can begin engaging with. Okay, I know I've covered a lot of stuff here, but I want to turn it over to you guys and ask if there's any people who want to share about this experience of engagement, the mask exercise, or something that you discovered in the workbook, and share it with one another. All right, let's review what we learned today. First, we learned how to use our regulation tools to help us move from an escalated state back to a regulated state. We saw how Bill, Sue, and John each used these tools in their own lives to manage their own escalation. And third, we learned about engagement and how important it is to maintaining a healthy psychology that for some of us might be challenging. We used the mask exercise to experience the differences between feeling engaged or disengaged with those around us. So that brings our time for session 2 to a close. I really appreciate you joining me, and keep on doing the e-learning exercises on your dashboard, and I will see you next week.